Okay, here we go. Normal time of the week, usual time of the week, I should say, when I get things organised here.
It's time now for the latest news on what's hot and what's not in the world of technology with Matthew Dickerson on Tech Talk. Here on TCFM 88.9.
Morning, Matthew.
Yeah, good morning, Richard.
You're smiling.
Always smiling when I come to see you.
I can't imagine why you're smiling. I just can't imagine.
That's a good week for Dubbo.
It's been a good, let's put it that way. It's a good week for Dubbo, finally. All right, get away from that. I've lost my notes. Where are we? Oh, here we No, I had them 10 seconds ago. You're responsible for that. I've lost them.
Don't put the blame on me for this. I would say don't have pieces of paper and notes. I'd say do it all electronically.
What do you think I'm doing with everything else in here? I've got 7 screens as it is. I don't need another one, thank you. Okay, charging your phone in 8 minutes. Come on, I want one.
Sounds pretty good, doesn't it?
Oh yeah, I need one.
There's a lot of competition going on in the smartphone market, and trying to come out with the next killer feature is what they're all trying to do. So Xiaomi is not a name that we really associate much in Australia. But
it's Chinese.
It's Chinese, and it's one of the big ones. It only started about 11 years ago, so they've done quite well to become one of the top 5 smartphone manufacturers across the world, based mainly on the sales they do in China. And they like to come out, one of their big things they've really worked on recently is fast charging, because they believe that's the next killer feature, the next compelling feature that we all want to upgrade for. And they've got a 200-watt charger they've just shown off that will charge your phone, a 4,000 milliamp hour battery, so a normal size battery on a smartphone, in 8 minutes. Now, gone are the days, Richard, back in your day and my day, you'd have a phone and you'd plug it in overnight because you had to charge it up overnight. If you didn't have it charged the next morning, you go, oh no, I can't use my phone today because it's not charged, it'll take all day to charge. Now, 8 minutes, quite incredible. Now, this isn't a phone you can buy yet, so as much as you want one, this is just showing off. But they do have some phones that are quite impressive. They've got a phone that does 100 watts at the moment, so about half that sort of time, so that's available now. And Oppo, all this competition is fantastic. Oppo have got a 125 watt charger, and that charges the phone that they've got with that charger in about 20 minutes. So you're talking about incredibly reduced times. These are all with plug-in chargers, but they also are doing wireless chargers quite quick as well. So for example, the Xiaomi one will do not 8 minutes, but 15 minutes for wireless charging. So that just sounds incredible.
That's good. Yeah, that's good. So it puts something like this to shame.
It does. Your good old wireless charger you've got there. Typically the wireless chargers people have got now are 8 watts or 15 watts or 20 watts, not 120 watts as Xiaomi's talking about here with these wireless chargers. So it's all good from a perspective. I love this competition amongst these big players. When Xiaomi and Oppo and all the other smartphone manufacturers go to war, you and I as consumers benefit.
We're going to benefit. Do you snore?
I don't snore much, but I do enough that my wife will jab me the ribs every now and again and wake me up.
Fair enough. Okay, so we have got a Fitbit Sonora.
So one of the things that's interesting with all these wearables that we've got now is there's so much information being fed to us. We can see our heart rate, we can see ECG maps, and now Fitbit's come out with the concept of listening. So you've got your phone on overnight, on your wrist while you're sleeping, listening to your snoring to give you a report in the morning to say how well you slept, how much deep sleep you had, how much snoring you did, what decibels your snoring was at. So when your partner jabs you on the ribs and says, wake up, you're snoring, you say, hold on a second, check your watch. I was only snoring at 52 decibels. That shouldn't have been enough to wake you up. So again, we've all used Dr. Google from time to time.
Yes.
But the important part, here we go, Siri's talking to me now. The most important part with all of this is when we get that information. So for example, if our Fitbit said we're snoring regularly during the night, we're snoring quite loud, the idea would be to go along and see a doctor because it might actually point to some more serious health issues.
Sleep apnea.
But all of these things, the great part about it is we're just being fed so much information. What we do with it then is up to us, obviously.
Yep. I mean, that's fair enough. But the thing is, if both you and your partner are wearing Fitbits and they both go off together, who's going to decide who's snoring the worst?
And that is one of the things they did talk about, that it doesn't necessarily identify you as the snorer, only when your partner's there awake saying, hey, I can hear you snoring, and then you can check your watch to say that it was you.
Guilty. Australian made. This app is a beaut idea. This is actually very, very good. So you can go into a supermarket with the app and find out how much Australian product is in the thing you're buying.
And there's 2 parts to this app.
I know, yeah.
One is the actual components that make up the whatever you're buying, And the other part is the ownership. So we see some great Australian brands that we think are iconic Australian brands, and then we're always disappointed to find out that they've been bought out by some overseas organisation. So this particular app, and I love the name of it, it's called Stralian.
It's Australian.
That's right, the very bogan way of saying Australian. And so Straian.
Yeah.
And what that will do, it'll give you a score out of 100 as to how Australian a product is. When you scan the barcode, it will look at the components that make up that and look at the ownership, and then combine those two to give you a score out of 100 to see how Australian it is. Now, it may not be that every product you scan is 100% Australian, but at least if you were comparing products, you could scan one and say, right, this one on the shelf is 88 and this one on the shelf is 72. I'll go to the 88, thanks very much. And surveys have shown that that level of wanting to buy Aussie made is increasing. So a survey that was done previously had the desire to buy Australian at 87%. The most recent survey had increased to 93% for our desire to buy Australian.
And the other thing about it is that people will buy Australian even if it's a few cents more.
And I think that's always the critical part. How much dearer are you prepared to pay?
Yeah.
So when you look at on the shelf and you go, oh good, that's got a score of 88, that's got a score of 40. Oh, but the score of 40 is half the price of the score of 88. Oh no, I might go the 40 even though it's not Australian. Everyone has, I think, their own individual price point as to how much more they will pay for it to be Australian. And I can't give you an exact answer on that one. But yeah, check out the app, Stralian.
Yeah, I'm going to check it out and I'm going to try it and I'll report back next week.
Yeah, but actually my daughter, my youngest daughter, has already downloaded it and she's been trying it out.
Yeah.
The thing is that they've only got 250,000 products at this stage. So that sounds like a lot, but you imagine all the products that they list off. I thought of you actually when I saw the list of ones. They had their beauty products was the number one they had on there. So they've got.
No wonder your daughter's downloaded it.
That's right. So you've got that. You've got various accessories, toys, a whole range of things. But you try it out if it's not on there. But I would suspect that they've gone for the most common items first.
So I just enter Australian, Straian.
Go into your app store, whatever you use,
Yeah.
Google, Apple, whatever, and download that. That'll come up there. Yeah.
Oh, okay, terrific. Now, this one, absolutely no way. Absolutely no way am I ever going to do this. No humans in a cockpit in a plane. Not happening with this black duck, I'll give you the tip. Go ahead and tell us.
So you can imagine many years ago, I'm talking about decades ago, when planes first started flying with Autopilot.
Yep.
Imagine saying to the passengers on those planes, well, there's a pilot up there at the moment, but he's sitting back with a cup of tea with his feet up and reading a magazine. And they'd be horrified. What, isn't someone flying the plane? Sure, a computer's flying the plane. That would have been horrifying. We're all comfortable with that. Back in the old days when we used to be able to fly overseas, that plane flew to LA, for example, probably 12 and a half of the 13 hours was spent on Autopilot.
I agree.
That's fine.
But there was someone sitting
There's
there.
still someone sitting there, and it's not like the Autopilot of flying high where it's a blow-up doll that pops up in there. There's still a human there. Now I've watched
I don't care if he's having a cup of tea or having food or whatever. I don't care. But
I've watched enough air crash investigations to know that Autopilot is fine until it's not.
Yeah.
And that's when you want the human to come in and say, hey, let's identify this problem and deal with it. But there's a company in America at the moment that is converting a whole fleet of King Air planes, and we see King Airs around here, obviously, they're well used around this area, converting them all to fully autonomous. So it will be on the tarmac, it will take off by itself, it will fly by itself, it will land by itself. At no point during that whole journey does it need to have a human either on the ground or in the plane involved. There will be some monitoring done on the ground, so if something goes wrong, a human can try and identify things and try and fix things. But they won't be flying the plane like a drone would be. They will just be monitoring. They might be monitoring 10 planes at the same time. And if an emergency happens on one, then they'll take care of it. So the idea here is you and I won't be able to get on these planes initially. They'll be used for surveillance. For example, a bushfire. They might fly above the bushfire to see where it's going next. Or they might be doing some monitoring. But then it'll get to the stage where our cargo, our freight will be used.
Spying.
Spying. Well, I wasn't going there, but yeah, sure. And then at some point now, I'm estimating here, Richard, maybe 10 years down the track, you'll get to the point where a plane will be able to fly, where you'll get on and there'll be no one sitting up in the cockpit.
not happening. Not happening. I mean, I can put up with trains having no one up front.
Yeah.
That's all right because trains can be stopped and trains are better able to. They're on rails.
At least when they stop,
They're controllable.
they don't fall out of the air, do they?
No, they don't. Yeah, and the train will just stop.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So before that 10-year time frame, though, I think robo-taxis, we're already seeing some trials around the world with robo-taxis where you'll have no pilot on a robo-taxi. You'll get into a taxi, you'll take off from that point, fly you to somewhere else and land. I'm not sure how people feel about that, but for some reason I think they'd feel more comfortable about that short little hop and only low to the ground, although you'd still be in a bit of trouble if it fell, compared to 36,000 feet flying from, I don't know, Sydney to LA.
Not happening with this black duck. I'll pay more to have a bloke up the front.
Fair enough.
I'll buy a bottle of red at the other end. I don't want him drinking on the job. Green hydrogen in Western Australia, and this looks like a very good environmental advantage to this country.
Yeah, hydrogen is talked about often as a great fuel source, because obviously when you
Well, it is.
use hydrogen, you get output of water and oxygen, so it's fantastic. So effectively what we're talking about is this is all great, but to produce hydrogen, to actually do the electrolysis to get hydrogen, there's a lot of energy used, and that's typically coal-based energy. At the moment, 0.1% of the hydrogen produced around the world is produced with clean energy. So hydrogen's not that clean at this stage. But there's a belief in some government circles that this is a huge amount of potential there for an industry. And WA has started putting a whole range of strategies, initiatives into place around Geraldton, so it's about, I think, 400 k's above Perth, where they want to produce lots of hydrogen there. Obviously, you need some water and you need power. They've got water, obviously, it's on the coast. And then power, they're building wind farms, they're building solar farms with the sole intention of being able to produce hydrogen. And there's a huge market for hydrogen, I mean, it will be across the world, but around Korea, around countries that are nearby Perth or nearby the western coast of Australia. So I think there's a potential there for Australia. Yes, we produce a lot of coal at the moment. Fast forward another 30 years' time, Richard, we may be the hydrogen producing nation of the world rather than the coal producing nation of the world.
Like to see that. I really would like to see that. Matt, we've run out of time as usual. I've gone way over time, but that's all right. Thanks very much for coming in. It's Tech Talk, and we'll do it again next week. But I tell you right now, never getting in a plane without a pilot up the front, not happening. And I want a phone that'll charge in 8 minutes, and I'm going to download Australian.
Well, put it this way, I think you'll have the phone that'll charge in 8 minutes sooner than you'll be able to get on the plane with no pilot.
Thank goodness for that. DCFM 88.9, 25 to 10.